So welcome to Accessibility 101, slightly beyond the basics. How many people here are new to accessibility? How many people here have intermediate level kind of feeling for accessibility? Any advanced? All right, awesome, cool. Hopefully you gained something out of this. So first off, I want to say welcome, and I'm going to introduce the company I work for. So I work for a company called Oomph. We're a full-service web agency. We're headquartered in Providence, Rhode Island, but we have employees all over the U.S. We help companies with digital strategy, user experience design, and Drupal implementation. A lot of our Drupal work revolves around complex implementation, system integrations, commerce, multilingual, and accessibility. Lastly, we are strongly involved in the community, speaking, sponsoring conferences. Some of you probably all heard John talk earlier. He works at my company. He's been on Talking Drupal podcast for years now, so we're around. And we're hiring, so I'm Kathy Beck. I'm a senior UX engineer at Oomph. You can find me on social media at kbeck303, pretty much everywhere. I've been, as part of the UX team, I work on Drupal site building and theme implementation. I've been working in Drupal since 4.7. I don't think I actually built anything in that version, but I was around then. But I'm very excited how Drupal 8 is coming along, and I'm looking forward to digging into Layout Builder more. In the past 3 years, I've been spearheading Oomph's accessibility initiative. So that's why I'm here, sharing what I've learned over the last 3 years with everyone here. First off, I want to say thank you for caring. And I really do mean that. You're taking a step for understanding empathy and understanding other people and users. And not everyone can actually say that. So give yourself So just showing up. So I'm gonna start by doing a little maybe mind reading on why you might be here. Accessibility is something that we should all care about, but it doesn't take work to understand why it's important. It takes work to empathize with anyone who might benefit from knowing this information. Some of you in the audience might be starting to become aware of what accessibility on the web means, and you're here to understand more about what it is and why it's important. And then some of you might know people who are will benefit from inclusive websites, so you understand why it's important. Sorry, trying to multitask, roll up my sleeves, and keep presenting. Still, some more of you might have been thrown into this world very abruptly, because some people in your circle might have been faced with some recent litigations, or this is a possibility in our workspace. And then finally, something that you probably didn't know before coming here, that all of this can actually help bring revenue and traffic to your website or your client's website. It's not, yeah, so let's start with a brief history lesson. So Accessibility in the public space has been around for now almost 30 years. It started with the Americans with Disabilities Act by George H.W. Bush, and it was an extension of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And this granted people with all disabilities, to gain access to public buildings. In 2006, the first major court case was cited for the ADA, appeared with Target. So that's when the public domain came from public space out in the physical world, and now public space is now being introduced to the digital world. And that's where this is an idea that's been around for a while, but it's now new into the digital space. But we can take some inspiration that it is possible. It's not impossible. Buildings have been doing it for years. You can probably go back to buildings built in like 1600. They probably would be accessible to wheelchairs because things were just more simple back then. And so this gives me hope that it's not a hindrance. It's not something that you should fear. Stuff like this, the Disney Music Hall in LA, like this is a beautiful building and it's fully accessible. So it might actually help you push to the limits of some of your design ideas. Sometimes we forget when talking about abilities is that abilities and disabilities can be temporary. And it lets us think more broadly with access. I feel like this monitor situation's like blocking me, but so with this, while 1 in 5 Americans is notable, we should be I missed a slide, sorry. All right. I'm just going to come over here. So, abilities are on a spectrum. When we think of disabilities, we're usually thinking of our permanent column. But if you think about it, touch, the permanent disability there is one arm. You might permanently have one arm or no arms. But arm injuries, you broke your arm, you sprained your arm, that's temporary. Those can go, you can walk out the door and now you have to deal with having less of an ability with your hand. And then you have situational abilities. New parents, they probably walk around holding their baby like this 24 hours a day, so they're doing everything one-handed. Can they do that? And maybe you're driving on your cell phone, which you shouldn't do, but it's a thing. But then sight, you have blind people. That one's the obvious permanent. But then if you think about cataracts or glaucoma or something like that, those are temporary disabilities. And then you have your distracted driver. So you have someone who's deaf. Then an ear infection, that's your temporary. And then you have bartender, but you might be in a library. You might be sitting at your desk with headphones on, so you don't hear anything. These are all like situational, and you can probably see yourself in one of these situational awareness, situations. And then for speech, you have nonverbal. Then if you lost your voice, have laryngitis or cold and you can't really talk. And then heavy accents. Now with a lot of voice interacted speech stuff, heavy accents, they're hard to pick up sometimes when you're working with voice-activated commands. But let's put some numbers to these situations so that we can start looking at maybe your clients, your demographics, or your clients' clients. But again, here you think you're building your site to be accessible for 26,000 people. Look, that's the number that is listed. But if you think about it, every year about 13 million people break their arms. So, and then you have 8 million new parents every year. So something you thought that might have only helped 26,000 people now could potentially help 21 million, or allow 21 million users to experience your content, experience your site. Besides thinking of how to help people with different abilities, my coworker Jay, he shared this with me. He found an article where it said Generation Z loves closed captioning, and it's because it lets them focus better. They can multitask and still catch the captions and do what they're wanting, and they can multitask, or again, they might be in the library studying or this or that. But it's not just to accommodate someone's ability. It's now for anybody. So when you have to add transcripts for video, Tim, it's not just for that small number of people. It could be for a wider range of people that are starting to consume content in these ways. It's not a personal health condition. It's the way in which a person deals with the world and things in it. So it's a mismatch between how I interact with something and the way that thing was built for interaction. Those might not align. So the solution to the problem, how can we make web more inclusive, is that we need a better design, and we need to intend to be inclusive. A product could be made a certain way, but if you open up that intention to be there for everybody, not just be used in this way, then you open up the door for everybody to use it how they want. All right, let's dig into the guidelines a little bit. You probably heard of the guidelines, WCAG, which is Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. We are now up to 2.1. And these are well documented on the web. And they can feel overwhelming when you look at them. But if you break it down to the top level terms here, they're not as scary as they might look. They're written more technical and dense, but if you look at these, you have perceivable. That's to be seen. Operable. It needs to be easy to use. Understandable. Robust. Able to be interpreted by a wide range of user agents. You need to be able to use it with blow sticks, tap pens, different technologies. You have text alternatives for images and graphics. You have standards for adding transcripts for time-based media. That's adaptable, that it changes from screen to screen or device to device, and that it's distinguishable, that you can use your keyboard to get through and navigate it. That you have enough time to complete a task on the site. That there's nothing Caesar or physical reactions to that. Modal inputs, again, that's the blow sticks and like other types of devices such as that. Make sure that it's readable, that you know what's going to happen when you come to a pager. The pager acts the same. When you come to a menu, a link, they act the same, they do the same. So predictable. Input assistance. Do you know what to fill in on this form? Do you get assistance if it errors out? Do you know why it errored? So if you look at the words, it feels a little more human than reading the technical documentation. It can feel overwhelming, but it's not. So there are different levels of the WCAG. So you have your level A, which is your minimum requirement there, and the level AA, which is moderate, and then you have your AAA, which are, no one can really complain ever if you do that. So the nice part about how the WCAG is organized, it can almost be, in a sense, a choose your own path or your own level of compliance, in a sense. That if you don't have any videos on your site, you can not ignore, but ignore the time-based media section. You don't have to be an expert in that information. If you're only using images and text, then spend your time on that other spot, and dig into the easy, low-hanging fruits. So a few things. So all those categories, I feel, can be broken up kind of into these themes, I guess you could say. You just have to make sure there is multiple ways to navigate and operate your site. You want people to get to your content in multiple ways. You want them to be able to use it on any device they want to use it on. Then customizations. You want them to be able to pause, turn off notifications, turn off sound, stop animation, change colors, stuff like that. And then things should be consistent. Again, if you have pagers, they should all function the same way. If you have teaser content, they should be fairly similar in their structure so that these patterns start to become representative within the screen reader itself. Some of you might be asking, why should I care? Besides someone telling me I should be caring. And we're in the Drupal space. Out of the box, Drupal 8, I want to say is pretty darn good. The caveat is once you start adding in custom themes, contributed modules, custom code, third-party embeds, that's when you need to start putting more effort to testing and checking and remediating. That's when things can go awry. So one of the most common problems is insufficient contrast. So level brain fart, sorry, human. So you might be given brand colors that you can't, that are just given to you because the client inherited them. They're not rebranding. They have these set things. This is probably one of the easier solutions to remediate on the accessibility side. To come up with the colors, you don't need a developer. And implementation could potentially be slightly less painful than any of the rest of the remediation for accessibility. I suggest doing this. And I'm going to be showing tools and testing. So I'm trying to get through some of this bigger stuff so we can test some stuff live. And if you have feedback, we can do that. And then with sites, even though you've set up a platform, you need to be very conscious of content. Content can make your accessibility make your passable site unaccessible just by someone adding content to the page. So it's important to keep your header structures semantic. I keep saying this to my coworkers and stuff. I feel like we're just going a little bit backwards, and you just have to create valid markup. Create valid HTML markup again. And that's what we're just saying with content. Just make valid markup. One thing to keep in mind that I'm probably at fault for doing as well, but we have the here, learn more. We're all probably, what's a word I'm looking for? I'm guilty. Thank you. I'm like short on words, and it's at the worst point right now. Guilty of this, but if in your copy, your body copy, if you can get in the habit of, instead of just being here, which is a small click state, give a more descriptive context to where that link's going to. And then for more content, then there's the image alt text. This one is, a lot of times you have the tendency just to write alt text or picture, a boy running through the water. But you really have to think, does this provide context? Does this picture bring relevance to the content on that page? Because if it doesn't, maybe you don't even need to write text for it. But if it does help, then you might want to think about what you want to describe. Is it something that brings value describing the texture, the feel, the energy in the picture? Or is it something that should be described more, an Asian boy running and being happy? You can describe this in many ways, but you want it to fit with the narrative of the content on that page. And if it doesn't fit with the content of the page, you might think of just leaving it out. Not the picture, but the text.
The library requires it.
If you set it to require it, you can turn that setting off, which I do. Yes, I don't like that they do require it, because there are times when it's just presentational and you don't need it.
Still coming up to speed on some of this stuff, so thank you. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect example, because Drupal by default sets it, and if you don't know you can uncheck it, then you're just going to be writing boy and image.
Yeah, the vendor I'm working with said it's the default, right?
Yes, default.
So,
yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So, again, writing alt text isn't just for accessibility. It's good for SEO. And that might resonate with higher ups or your vendors or your clients. They might feel better hearing, oh, you should do this because SEO is gonna like it more. But know that but also, guess what? It's gonna invite other people to hear your story. All right, on to the good stuff, in my opinion. So tools in testing. So to be honest, accessibility testing is an ongoing process, even after deployment. Because as soon as you add content to your site, that could be semantically wrong, and now that page doesn't pass accessibility. A new feature is added to your site. You want to pass that entire feature through all your testing phases. Do a complete audit on that feature so that you know it's going out. All right. So there's a bunch of tools out there. And I use a bunch of these, so I'm going to actually show you some demos of these add-ons. So we're going to exit this. And one. Sorry, I'm looking for my window. Disappeared on me. There we go. So I'm using TED.com because they have really good accessibility, and they're not our client. So I'm going to use it. By the way, this talk is awesome. And one thing that I really like about their talk is that they have this transcript down here. So if I come in a little bit, as she
Because I cannot see.
talks,
That's largely true. Actually, I just
Going
needed to
through,
have a bit of help to come up to
I
the
believe
stage.
they're using the
But
JW
there's also
player
lots that I can
for
do.
this.
This is
and
me.
it's fast.
I lost my sight
This,
at
you
the
can
age
jump
of 14.
down.
I started developing digital book technologies.
Yes, it's a great
such
great site. Little side note on their transcript, love it. But some of the add-on Chrome add-ons that I use so this one is called Wave. They actually just updated their interface, which is cool. Less than a couple weeks ago, it looked like 1990s Microsoft. But they do give some helpful information here. So that's a nice add-on. I don't use that one as often, but they did just update their interface, so I might pop it open a little more nowadays. This one's a nice high level. It's called Totally. There's a couple Totally add-ons on Chrome. I use the Totally from Khan Academy, Khan. There'll be another one that pops up higher. I either couldn't get it working or it worked weird, but this is the one I use. But high level, it will give you a list of headings. You can, bless you. So you got some heading tags that you can see. This page doesn't have many. There they are. You got one that's out of order. Then you can quickly check some contrast stuff. And they'll flag it. This one's probably being flagged because there's a video behind the white text, and behind the video is probably white, so they're like, no, this is bad. But on a high level, this one's kind of quick and easy to just glance and see. So I'll pop that open every once in a while. But the ones I use the most, and depending on your uses, Chrome's accessibility developer tools will give you this audit tab, and it will run a Lighthouse report for you. no, this is going to have bad performance because I have a ton of extensions on. So you're going to see that this is not going to perform great, but I do want to show you what a report would look like. And it's testing it in different states and whatnot, so it's just running through, doing its thing. Interesting. Yesterday when I ran it, it was a higher percentage for accessibility, but
It's Saturday.
yeah, exactly.
Is it based on page by page?
This one's a page by page. Yep. And then as you scroll down, you can dig in and drill in deeper into these. I don't overly use this one because there's a bunch of stuff. I'm usually just trying to do accessibility stuff, so I use the Axe add-on, which Lighthouse and Axe run off the same accessibility engine. So either one that you use is good. I like this one because it lets you set a highlight, so it highlights the thing that it's talking about. And then also, is there a contrast one up there? If you get an error on contrast, and if it's like, because there's an image behind it or something, it will tell you here that it can't determine it, so it's just going to flag it anyways, and you can actually like say this is not an issue, so it like doesn't show up in your report. I found this one to be a nice, quick tool to go through. It lets you tab through the issues if there's more than one type on the page. And then we have this add-on. It's called Spectrum, and what it does is it lets you see how different visual disabilities. So if you look at these buttons, you see that they change color. It's just a quick, easy way to see how some people might see your site if they have different visual abilities. So those are a couple nice Chrome add-ons that I like. Firefox's developer tools have really gotten awesome. I haven't dug into them, but I know a couple of my coworkers have switched browsers specifically for the accessibility tools. That they've really just been working on it, and it's coming along. So don't discredit Firefox.
What was the first Chrome plugin called?
The first one was Wave. W-A-Z-V-E.
Can you pull up that slide again that has all the tools on it?
Sure can.
Thank you. Oh, right.
And then we have some Drupal modules. The only one I've used right now is CK Editor Ally Checker. And I haven't used it too much, maybe once. So I'm not even 100% sure what it actually does, but I know it has one. But in general, like I said, Drupal is making advancements with accessibility. And I was just updating a site last week and was checking all the release notes, and I was pretty excited to see that not in the last release, but the one before, so 8.7.9, they added improvement to their toolbar menu. It's really nice seeing that the community is working on pretty major features and core still. So that was nice to see and wanted to make a mention of that. And again, the more I'm interacting with screen readers and accessibility and testing, the more I'm falling back to write valid HTML markup. We're finding screen readers read differently. The Mac versus Windows screen readers have completely different philosophies in how they were coded and how they work. So unless you want to do the old IE7 style, IE8 style sheet, IE9 style sheet, mobile style sheet, desktop style sheet, and do that for accessibility. The best thing you can really do is write valid markup, and then let the screen readers handle that code how they do. So, just validator.w3.org again. Feel like I haven't gone there in a while, but we're back to doing that. And those are a bunch of free automated stuff. But then you have free manual things like just taking a site and using your keyboard and tab through it. If you haven't done that, it's amazing. Or sad, depending on the site you're on. As I'm developing, I'm just tabbing through stuff, or I'm browsing a site that I'm buying something on. I'll just tab through, see if I can do it. I'm like, I don't know about you. So that's a free manual testing. So color contrast ratios. I mentioned that color contrast is one of those easy hanging fruits you might be able to like tackle early on. About 2 years ago, Oomph had a hack day, and a few of us created this tool because there's a lot of contrast checkers out there, color checkers, but usually it's this one-to-one, a foreground, background, test the color. Is it, all right, grab a new color, test it, or you're testing a color against a color, and then they provide every color under the sun that could be a good contrast ratio. But internally at Oomph, we work with a lot of clients that have a preset brand palette. So we created this tool, and a couple weeks ago we updated it more so that you can submit colors, then you can see how they compare to white or to black, or dark I should say, because you can actually predefine your dark and light values. And then this third column here is checking against the colors you're viewing, so your brand palette, what colors within that palette are the best match. Sometimes they aren't, but it's doing its best to calculate that. And with our enhancements, we've used hue, saturation, and lightness to control these things. So as you can see, we have this red, and it's accessible on white, but not on black. And what this allows you to do is potentially just there. I bumped that up, like 4 or 5 little lights. Now it's accessible on dark colors, but on the average eye, if you're looking at this on a site, you wouldn't know those are 2 different reds, but it allows them to pass on different colors. So this is a tool we built, but we also use it internally all the time. We send it to our clients, they use it. So feel free to use it. It's on GitHub. Feel free to add issues if you want to see new features. Yeah, we're excited about this one. So then you have VoiceOver, which is your native Mac voiceover tool. And then you have NVDA for Windows. It's a free software you can download. Has anybody used either of those? No? Cool. I'll give you an example at the end of how VoiceOver reads things out, because I think it's a cool experience to hear how that works. But then you have some paid services here. So we use SiteSort, and that's for Mac and Windows. I do have a sample. I pre-ran a report on TED.com just so you would be able to see what a report like this would look like. And SiteSort is paid, I think it's a little under $200, a little pricey. But you can test errors, accessibility, standards, and usability. So it's not just accessibility. It's link checkers to see if you have broken links, stuff like that.
New browser? Separate?
This is a separate application. So you'll get like a list of errors. This one went through like 4,000 pages, so it probably found some obscure things. But if you open them up, you can see there's a bunch. One thing you might notice, this one has like over 300 pages affected with the same thing. It might just be a template issue. So in Drupal, you might just need to change one thing in one template and you can fix all your issues. So don't be kind of overwhelmed or scared if you see reports that come back like with hundreds of things on it, because Drupal's using templates and you might just need to change one thing. But you would come in here, you'd click that line, and you'd be able to see where that code is to then remediate it. In this report, you can scan per pages or entire sites. You have a lot of settings you can run through on these reports. But that's just another tool that we use. And then we also use Integrity on Mac for link checking, just to make sure there's no broken links on our sites. And then there's JAWS for Windows, which is still kind of technically the industry-leading screen reader. That one's a bit expensive. It's a couple $1,000s. Just know it's around.
Which one?
JAWS for Windows.
Site Improve is expensive too.
So yeah, I hadn't heard of these, but yesterday I did a training here, and
Oh, yeah.
some of our
It's awesome.
so you use it?
Yeah.
I heard that.
It's magical.
So from what you were saying,
Yeah.
they provide
Yeah.
accessibility hooks
Yeah.
to tie into that will then provide markup.
Tells you how to fix it.
Yeah, it'll pick up typos too.
nice.
It'll pick up just about anything. That's
And-
why I love it.
And when we were talking about that, someone also mentioned Moncito, which might be a competitor to the same type of service. I haven't used them, but I wanted to put them here because other people are.
Yeah, I think they were like $6,000 a year or something like that.
$6,000 a year?
It's a subscription.
Gotcha.
not a license.
Yeah, both of them had like request demo type links.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Got a cheap client.
all right.
That's why they hired me.
And my notes. Why do those notes always go behind?
Whose cat is that?
No, just one I found. That's cute.
Really?
Mine's fat and cross-eyed, not mine.
But also very cute.
Very.
Alright, so are we close to
Yeah.
crap? Okay, I just let's see if there's anything real important here. So some stats on screen readers, some more color contrast during development, things to think about, valid HTML, use open source libraries when you can. The Focus Visible is great to give separate styles for keyboard tabbing versus hover focus actions. Also, just test with keyboards and beware when building forms. There's a lot behind forms. And deploying content entry. You'll want to do some training there. Maybe some regularly scheduled automated reports. when you add new features, go through full accessibility. You might want a legal statement similar to policy and privacy in terms of use. You might want to have an accessibility option there saying what standards you're complying with, and if anybody sees anything, they might want to report it to you, give a link to a form. And then you might want to look into creating a VPAT. If anybody hasn't looked into that, this voluntary product accessibility template, it comes from the physical product world, but is being adapted for the digital space. And it's a kind of a self-regulated document that says, we know we might not be 100% compliable. We're falling a little short here. We're working on it. And it wouldn't stop any legal actions, but it could potentially put a good faith, be like, oh, they know about it, they're working on it, let's give them 90 days to fix it or something like that. It's a little more of a faith. So let's quickly go through TED.com with a voiceover on.
Accessibility options. Welcome to macOS. Voice vertical line new. Active.
Go get ready.
Button. You are currently on a
Thank
button
you.
inside of web content. To click. Visited link. TED. You are currently on a link. To click this link, press watch menu item menu bar attend menu item. Participate link.
Get
So,
to, like, content.
link. Add to link. Link. Recommend. Play. 0. 08 Espanol, France, Italia button. More off, more option. 0 nor 2x button. Enter full screen button. Facebook button list circle link getting link Twitter button. Email visited link. Link. Footnotes notes plus references. Chrome has new window. You link. 0 link. 0 link. 0340 button. Here are resources on keyboard.
So I was just tapping for a
You are
while.
currently
Now
on
I'm
a text
using some
element.
hotkeys to go through and
Link.
read
Assistive
actual
technologies. http:// What inspires you? Tell us your interests and we'll pick TED Talks just for you.
So
You
yeah,
are currently on
I'd
a text
recommend if you
element.
have a Mac, just turn on voiceover every once in a while. I think if you have the touch bar, hit the power key 3 times, it will bring up the accessibility modal, so you can turn it on real quick. And then if you have a Windows laptop, download NVDA. It's free. Try it out. The voice is a little different, but they have a lot of options for voices. Sorry this went a little
Chrome has a new
over,
window.
but thank you for coming, and I'm sorry you didn't have time for questions. Does anybody have any real quick ones?
I just want to do a super quick shout out. DHS has a new certification called Trusted. It's not new, but a new version, Trusted Tester. So it says it's a 60-hour certification in testing for web accessibility. It's really more like 40 hours. And it's super great training on WCAG for the web, examples of what to do and what not to do, and a non-free way to test that on your websites. It's at dhs.gov/trusted-tester.
Oh, cool.
They're not advertising it, so I'm doing it for them. It's an awesome, I'm making my whole team do it. It's great free training. Yeah, that's awesome.
Free training is great. And that was so
dhs.gov/trusted-tester.
dhs.gov/trusted-tester.
And you don't have to be a Gov person, and literally anyone can sign up through the portal and do the training.
Awesome. So free training.